The first focus should not be salary, I should say, at least for the first 5 years, because the first 5 years will shape up your career in your role for rest of your life.
If I am from a technical or a non-technical background, what is that one thing or two things or a stack of technologies that I should learn in order to get my first job as a web developer?
Now, range of salaries varies from company to company, but I can group them as tier 1 companies, mostly Mang and Fang companies, and then tier 2 companies could be the service-based companies. So in tier 1 companies, you can expect the base package to start from 14 LPA, and it can go all the way up to 24 to 25 LPA as well.
What is the basic research that I should do that my resume gets shortlisted? So let's take an example for a front-end developer job, right? So if those are the basic skills that I'm learning: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. What should I put in my resume that my resume will actually get shortlisted? How many jobs should I apply to before actually calling it quit? This is not for me. Maybe I should think about something else. Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of the Intellipaat podcast. Today's conversation will help you get a step-by-step roadmap to become a full-stack developer. We have a very special guest with us, Mr. Shubham Lal. He works as an SDE II at Microsoft. It's been 5.5 years since he's been associated with Microsoft, and he works as a software developer. Special note for our viewers who are going to graduate fresh out of college: Shubham cracked Microsoft when he was in college. So he's also going to focus on how you can prepare and get a job at Microsoft. Throughout this conversation, he is going to talk about various aspects of full stack development, how you can enter this field, and how you can crack Mang companies. So if you like programming and want to build a stable and lucrative career in the IT industry, this podcast is all you need. I honestly believe that this podcast is going to help you get an in-depth overview of how you can get started in the full stack domain. So please make sure to stay tuned right until the end. So hi Shubham, welcome to the Intellipaat podcast.
Hi, Eamon.
Glad to have you here. So guys, I've already told you about Shubham, but Shubham, can you tell us a bit about yourself? What you do, what is your specialization in, and then we can take it forward from there.
Sure. So I'm a software developer by profession, and it's been 5 years I have been working for Microsoft. Throughout my tenure at Microsoft, I have worked upon multiple business verticals. I started off working for Azure, then I moved to Windows, then I've also worked for Office 365, and currently I'm working under Microsoft Teams.
Wow.
And throughout my journey that has been in the last 5 years, I have touched upon multiple tech domains, full stack development being the most prominent one, but I've also worked as a data scientist. I've also touched upon mobile application development, and currently it's all about AI and ML. Right. Keeping the professional part aside, I have a deep passion and interest in helping students, and especially for the people who are trying to achieve the same dream that I had lived for. And hence you see me here doing things like this, talking about knowledge that I have gained so far and suggesting people that can help them to shape up their journey and make a career in tech industry.
Wow. So these are a lot of things to learn, I think, in 5 years. And just to clear it out, guys, not everyone has the opportunity to work on so many technologies as Shubham has, right? So Shubham, let's talk about full stack development, right? So because all the people who are watching today, they want to know how they can become a full stack developer. Maybe they're already on their journey to become a full stack developer. But let's start it for people who want to just become a full stack developer. They want to start that journey, right?
Okay.
So what is the first step? If I am from a technical or a non-technical background, what is that one thing or two things or a stack of technologies that I should learn in order to get my first job as a web developer, or just getting my first step towards full stack development? So how do I go about it?
Got it. So to answer your question, I'll answer other question first about what exactly is full stack development, because unless and until we are not aware what is full stack development, we can't go about talking about how to become one, right? So full stack development, if I talk about in layman terms, is the ability of someone to design things from scratch and develop things from bare scratch and take it to a level where it can be used by multiple people at the same time.
Okay.
Right. For example, I can open up my laptop, I can design the front end, the client side UI, and I can also create backend, but that's just not enough. I can't expect people to come to my laptop to use the website or any product, right? So I should also have the understanding of how to push that website to a cloud where it can be used by people, accessed by people. I should also have understanding of databases where I can store the data of the website, any kind of website, right? So that's the ability if someone has to do all these tasks end to end by themselves, that person can be called as a full stack developer, right? Coming to your question, how to become one.
Right.
Now, to answer this question, I'll take a step back to talk about how many domains we have within full stack development. So primarily, I see from my perspective, we have 4 major domains. The first domain is front end development. Whatever you see on your screen, a website, a mobile application, or anything as such, whatever you see is a front-end UI. Someone has designed it.
Okay.
So that's the front-end part. The back-end part is the logic behind it. For example, you post a picture on Instagram and someone else is able to see it. How is that happening? Because there are wirings done behind the scene, and that's the back-end portion, right? That's the second domain. Third is the database. Now, you uninstall your Instagram or anything, but you reinstall it after a couple of days, your images will still be there, whatever you have uploaded. How did it come from? Because it has been stored in the database of the Instagram server, right? So that's the database part. I'm just giving a real world example so that we can relate, right? And the fourth part is the cloud.
Okay.
You are able to download applications. Why? Because it's stored in the server. You can get it from there, right? So that's the cloud part. The front end, back end, database, and cloud. These are the 4 major domains that we have under full stack development.
Okay.
If someone wants to become a full stack developer, they have to touch upon all these 4 domains, right? And if someone is trying to understand what's the minimum possible thing that they should do to become one, you need to have a bare minimum understanding of all these 4 domains. Okay. First domain being front end, you should have the basic understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
All right.
That's the bare minimum. Best thing is to have a framework understanding as well, like React or Angular or any framework out there, right? Similarly for backend, you can have understanding of either Spring Boot, Node.js, Django, anything. My suggestion would be Node.js because Mon-stack development is most relevant, but that's about it. You need to have some understanding of backend as well. And similarly for databases and the cloud as well.
Right. So a lot of technical jargons here, Shubham. So let's break it down. So what you explained us is that there are 4 parts to making a website work.
Yeah.
One is what we see on the website.
Exactly.
Like, for example, if we go to Intellipaat.com, what we see there, the homepage is basically designed by a front-end developer.
Correct.
Now, that front-end is interacting with the back-end. So whatever data we see on the website, that is being fetched from the back-end.
Absolutely.
And that data is stored on a database. So that's the third layer.
Exactly.
Right? And this is being stored somewhere.
Yeah.
And that is basically the cloud.
Absolutely.
Did I get it right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, do I have to learn all these 4 things in order to get a job?
To get a job as a full stack developer, yes. But to get a job just as a front-end developer or a back-end developer, even understanding of one particular domain will be enough. So if your question is, do you need to have all the understanding to get just a job? Answer would be no. Any particular domain you can have your expertise on, and you can find a job as a front-end developer, back-end developer. We have DevOps engineer as well, who just takes care of hosting the code and making sure the cloud works fine. So that is one way. But if you're trying to look for a job as a full-stack developer, you need to have the understanding of all 4 domains.
All right. So I can begin my career as a front-end developer also,
Absolutely.
as a back-end developer also, as a database administrator also.
Absolutely.
And someone who knows cloud also.
Exactly.
But if I'm working in any of these fields right now, I can also become a full-stack developer in the
Eventually, yes, after you have gotten the understanding of other domains.
That's interesting. Great. Okay. Now let's ask the very important question, which I think everybody would be thinking about. How much would we get paid? Okay. So if I start out in my journey to become a full stack developer, eventually how much will I get paid? And in the starting, how much will I get paid?
Okay. So first thing is salary depends upon a lot of factors. It's not just that it just not depend upon the domain or the role you are in. It also depends upon which company you're working for, what is your role in the company, how much years of experience you have got. Sometimes it also matters from which college you are from. Sometimes, and definitely the location in which you have been posted at, right? So keeping all these consideration, I can still come up with a range of salaries that you can expect. Now, range of salaries varies from company to company. but I can group them as tier 1 companies, mostly Mang and Fang companies, and then tier 2 companies could be the service based companies. So in tier 1 companies, you can expect the base package to start from 14 LPA. And it can go all the way up to 24 to 25 LPA as well, right? And similarly for tier 2 companies, it can start from, let's say, 7 LPA and it can go till 13 to 14 LPA as well.
Okay.
But I would like to touch upon very important factor over here is, once you're trying to become a full stack developer, or let's say it gets, this statement is valid for any role that you're trying to achieve, right? The first focus should not be salary, I should say, at least for the first 5 years, because the first 5 years will shape up your career in your role for rest of your life, right? So the first preference should also, and everyone should give, is just about the learning. What is the person you are becoming in the first 5 years? What are the things that you are learning? Are you growing every single day in the first 5 years? Right? That should be the preference, and that should be the priority over the salary, right? Because salary would be a byproduct once you have made yourself extremely capable as a full stack developer, right? So someone who is watching this podcast from tier 3, tier 4 college and have a complaints like, I'm getting companies who are paying me 2 LPA or 4 LPA or 5 LPA, take it as an opportunity. Maybe that company is very small. Maybe that company will give you things that you would not receive in tier 1 companies. Maybe you can grow in the way that can be extremely well, and you might land up in a better place who are joining Microsoft as a fresher, right? So that's going to be my takeaway from the whole scenario.
Okay. So we spoke about people from tier 3, tier 2 colleges as well. So the people who are in the colleges right now, see, when I was also in college, I wanted to get placed in companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, right? So, and you're from Microsoft, you'd be the best person to tell us, how that goes. So if I want to get into a company like Microsoft and into a full stack development role, so what are the things that I should know?
Okay.
Right? And is it really important to start my job from Microsoft? Right? Or is it really important to get into a company like Microsoft to earn higher packages? Right? So that is something that I think which our learners would be very interested.
Okay. So I'll answer your second question first, where you asked, should you actually aim for Microsoft, and should you actually dedicate all the energy just to have Microsoft as the aim? Right. Now, I would say it's always good to aim higher, aim for the best company, right? But at the same time, do not forget the fact that once you join a company like Microsoft and MNC, you will be working on a particular niche, on a particular product, on a particular tech stack, right? You would not have, not always, but most of the time, you won't have the understanding of end-to-end things that you'll be doing by yourself, right? So you should definitely aim for it. But at the same time, be open to consider any company that can give you the learning, right? So that should be the priority one, right? Okay. Coming to the salary part, yes, you would earn better in the first 5 years if you start off with Microsoft, right? But it's not at all the case that eventually you won't be able to reach to a point where you want to be, even though you start from a tier 3 company, right? If you focus on your learning, try to keep switching, try to switch your role, try to switch the company, try to upgrade yourself every single day, you might fall in the better bracket than people who are already working in tier 1 companies for longer time than you, right?
All right. So you're saying even if I'm in a tier 2 company, right? If I climb up the ladder, I might be equal to, in the salary range might be equal to someone who's in a...
Absolutely. So I'll just give you an example. Someone who is joining Microsoft after 6 years of experience, okay? There are two candidates. One candidate is coming from Google and the other candidate is coming from a tier 3 company, let's say. All right. Now, Microsoft will definitely look at what was the previous salary they had, but Microsoft themselves has a salary range of what they would be giving for someone who is a 6 years experience or someone who is an ST2 or senior software engineer, right? So both of that person might be not exactly same, but will be on the same bracket, right? So eventually it's not going to make a difference.
Okay.
And how it did not make a difference? Because the person who is coming from tier 3 company has made himself or herself capable of qualifying for the interview in Microsoft.
Right.
And hence it did not make a difference. Right. So even though you're coming from Google or coming from tier 3, you'll be landing up in the same range and your years of experience will be counted, not which company you are in.
Okay. Now I want to ask you a question which everyone is talking about these days, right? And especially for the people who are in the technical domain, right? I'm sure the audience knows we have got ChatGPT into picture now.
Yeah.
Right. So first of all, has it impacted you as a developer in Microsoft? Has it impacted you? Has it impacted your work? That is the first thing that I wanted to know.
Okay, I was waiting for this question for long. So yeah, it has impacted, but positively.
Okay.
Right? Now we can generate redundant codes just from ChatGPT or the OpenAI. We don't have to write code by ourselves if we are very clear about the requirement. We can just give it to ChatGPT and it generates the code.
So that's allowed in your company. You can use ChatGPT.
Yeah. The only thing is you have to respect the privacy. You have to not disclose any code. You don't have to like share the prompts, your code prompts into ChatGPT, but you can generate the code and then you can modify it the way you want to. Right?
Okay.
So that's very much okay to do that, right? So the only impact as now I see, it has enhanced the productivity of all the employees. And the second impact, what I see is it's an opportunity for all the companies to leverage OpenAI in their own product, right?
Okay.
Nowadays, even Gmail has the AI capability. You tell them what email you want to write and it will write an email for yourself, right? So it has created opportunities as well of adding more features to your product, right? But coming to the fact, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be your next question, that has it impacted the jobs, right? Is it gonna go down, right?
Yes.
So far we have not seen it happening because ChatGPT right now it's capable of generating code. It's not capable of designing a system end to end, where it has designed multiple things and it has designed and wired front end, back end, and it has integrated the database. For those things, you still need a developer. And hence, I have not seen much change in terms of jobs. Not sure what will happen down the line, but currently it's not impacting jobs. It's just creating positivity in terms of improving the productivity.
So let me take an example here. So I just want to understand from you how capable is ChatGPT right now. So let's say I want to design the front page for Intellipaat.com.
Yeah.
So can I ask ChatGPT to do it, and the code that it will give, will it give me the exact look and feel of how Intellipaat.com is looking right now?
Yeah, it can give you, right?
Okay.
There are few parameters that matters the most. First is how exactly you are able to communicate to ChatGPT what you exactly want.
All right.
Right? That is the first thing. If you are able to do that, it will definitely give you at least the structure. Right?
Okay.
But then you will need a developer who needs to do the basic aspects of, let's say, putting the logo of Intellipaat after the structure is there, right? Putting the content where you have to be. Generation can be done, but small loopholes like putting the logo, making sure it works in all the browsers still has to be done by the developer. And in fact, more than that, next month, if you have a certain update to be done on the homepage, you need a developer who understands the code. Right?
Okay.
So, although the ChatGPT can give you a very good kickstart, it can make your website live or it can design your website within a couple of days, and you might not need a team of developers. You might just need one developer who can understand it and execute it, right? But eventually, you would need developer who can support it, who can make slight changes, especially once the website grows. You can't just ask everything. Currently, at present scenario, you can't just ask everything to ChatGPT to develop it, right?
Okay, so you're saying if I am starting a business, right, and I have to generate a website for my business, for me, ChatGPT will be helpful.
Exactly.
But when it comes down to adding more features,
exactly,
when it comes down to maybe tweaking something on the website that I want, that ChatGPT for now is not good at it.
Yeah, it's not good at it. Yes.
So you're saying developers will be required.
Definitely.
The job field for developers is still relevant, right?
Definitely. So the only thing I mentioned is it improved the productivity. Now, instead of the developer trying to create the whole skeleton by themselves, they are just getting the whole skeleton by ChatGPT and just making few changes that can make the product live.
Amazing. So I think that answers a lot of questions for our audience, because in the industry, what is revolving around for non-technical people is that developers are gone, right? Coding is done by ChatGPT, and that is how it is going to be. But that clears here. So developers are still required, guys.
Definitely.
Right? And so when we were talking before this podcast, you mentioned that ChatGPT is now the new Stack Overflow.
Exactly. Yeah. So when Stack Overflow came, and currently if you see the importance of Stack Overflow, especially before ChatGPT, developers were relying on Stack Overflow to figure out the problems of their, like the solutions of their problems, right? Irrespective of which tech stack it is, Stack Overflow most of the time had the answers, right? But Stack Overflow did not take up any job. It did not removed any job, right? It just enhanced the productivity of the developers, right? So not exactly same, but similar pattern we are observing with ChatGPT as well. Now, if we see an error in the code, instead of debugging it, the first thought that comes in our mind is let's put into ChatGPT. We might get an immediate solution, right? And many a time we do get it. So it's just that productivity has gone up.
So now just steer the conversation in a different direction, right? So now we are in Intellipaat. We have all kind of learners who come to us who want to get into the technical domain, who want to full stack, get into the full stack domain. Now I want to touch base on the people who are from a non-coding background, right? So I am a person who doesn't like coding. I've tried my hands at coding. I've seen all the YouTube tutorials. I am just not able to get the hang of, I don't just, I after 2-3 hours, I don't feel like coding at all, right? But I find it very interesting. And I think so are the learners who are watching over here who are still in college, and for the people who are, trying to start into the coding domain.
Okay.
So from my perspective, I feel it might be also because of the way that I'm learning, right? Or it also might be because of the mindset that I had in college, the traditional way of learning. So how did you get into coding? First, I want to know that. And second, I want to understand, like, for the learners who are struggling with the same problem of not getting the interest in coding, even when they want to do something technical, how do they overcome that barrier?
Okay. So, to be honest, I faced the exact similar situation when I started off my college, and especially in the first semester, in the first year, we were introduced to C programming, right? And over there, we used to use an application called Code Blocks, where we had to write bunch of code, execute it, and the black color screen, slightly boring screen will come up where you have to input bunch of numbers and it will throw a bunch of output. I found it non-interesting, to be honest. And I think that was my driving factor towards getting interested towards front-end development. Because I saw creativity over there. I saw that I can explore things, I can make things, and I can get them rendered on a browser.
Right.
Writing a code, executing it, and seeing changes happening on a browser.
Seeing the output in real time.
Exactly. That is something gave me a kick. That was driving force for me to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all about front end in the first year of my college itself. Right. So if someone who is not much into coding, maybe trying to change the direction of what they are trying to do might help. For example, when I see front end, I do not see front end as something which is only about coding. I see 50% creativity over there. 50% thing that you can explore, that you can take inspirations from multiple websites, try it on yourself. So that could be the starting point for most of the people who are not very much interested in coding, right? And once they have gotten the fair understanding of front-end development, they can move to understanding more about the back-end part or database part, and eventually learn about a bit of the more programs as well.
Right. So I think this is something which we can do. So what you're saying is run the code and see the output in real time.
Exactly.
And that will actually help us in, seeing what we are coding, and maybe that will develop our interest.
Exactly.
So so you're suggesting for the people who actually want to get into full stack development, they should start from front end development.
Absolutely.
And start with HTML, CSS, see your output in real time, and that will help us go forward.
Yeah.
That's great. So so did you always wanted to become a full stack developer when you started off in your job, right? So did you have in mind that I wanted to become a full stack developer? So how did it start for you?
For me, it started off just out of pure interest. I loved making websites. In fact, I worked as a freelance web developer in the second year of my college, right? Where I designed a website for my college fest, where I designed website for other college fest. I also designed a website for a couple of restaurants as well in my city. So it was just the interest that I had to make things, create things, and showcase things to the world that drove me to all the things I did in the second year of my college, right? I in fact designed multiple portals for my college as well, which is still being used in the college. So that is something was my starting point. But eventually what I realized is front-end development or full stack development, now how I look at it as, it's the ability, if you are a full stack developer, you have an ability to solve problems, right? For example, there was a very common problem I observed during my time in my college. Every college has clubs, music club, dance club, coding club, and multiple aspects of such clubs, right? And events, updates, whatever is happening in the club used to come on Facebook in my college. And Facebook is a social media platform where multiple things will also come up. You might miss if you're trying to look for updates from a particular club.
Right.
I saw it as a problem. And hence I designed a portal. I developed a portal which is still being used, where clubs can put their updates on a particular portal, and anyone on the college who wants to know about any club, any event, they can just go into the website and see it, whatever is happening. Right? So that was a problem which I solved using my ability to develop and create websites. Right? So that was my motivation, that me seeing people using my portal, using my website for their own betterment, for their own comfort, has been the driving factor.
Okay.
And it has still been a driving factor. Even I have spent 5 years in Microsoft. Whenever I design product, it gives me a satisfaction to see people using it from across the world. Right. So that's my take on it. Yep.
So what you're saying is, and it also might relate to the people who don't find coding that interesting right now.
Exactly.
Pick up a real world problem, try to solve it with the things that you're learning.
Absolutely. Because coding, many a time, I can relate to people who dislike coding because I have been there. People dislike usually coding because you are given a hypothetical situation, hypothetical question, and you have to write a code out of it. Right? Let's say you have to sort an array of integers, or you have to reverse a linked list, right? These things are not real world. I mean, you can't imagine this on the real world, right? It's mostly theoretical, although it will give you a logic building abilities and problem solving skills, which are absolutely great skills to have. But I'm talking about someone who is not getting interested towards developing just the code and talking just about DSA. They can explore full stack development, talk about real world problems, solve real world problems that can give them extra interest that can drive them further.
Right. Okay. So now that so we have understood, how to become a full stack developer, what all technologies to learn. Maybe we have not touched all the technologies. We will get to that in a bit of time. But I want to know now, for our learners, now that they have started learning, right? At what point should they start applying for jobs? Okay. Should I start applying for jobs once I've learned everything? Should I start applying for jobs while I'm learning? So what should be the stage at which I should start applying for jobs? So that's the question. And then I have a follow-up question, that what is a way to apply for a job? How should I approach this problem of applying for a job? Okay.
So to answer your first question, you should never wait for a time when you have learned everything and then start applying the job, because that's never going to happen.
Right.
Till the time you spend on a particular tech stack, you'll see something else came in the market and you'll have to learn that as well. So it's never the case where you would never reach to a position where you can say that I have learned everything and I know everything, right? So you should always start applying for a job. If I talk about full stack development, we talked about 4 domains of full stack development, right? Even if in one domain you are doing fairly better, you can start applying for jobs for that particular domain.
So to dumb it down for me, what you're trying to say is that if I have learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and maybe a framework like React, I should start applying for jobs.
Absolutely.
Even if I'm not good at it, I have a fair understanding about it, I should start applying for jobs.
Correct. Because once you start applying for a job, you actually understand what is the level you need to reach to actually crack those placements, right? Or crack that job, right? So even though you're not good at it, applying will give you 2 kicks. First thing is, since you have applied, it will give you an extra motivation to prepare for it. And second, in case you fail, you'll understand that what's the gap. Where am I lagging, right? So it's definitely best thing to start applying way early in the career. For those people who are in second year, third year, placements might not be able to, they can't apply for placements. So internships are the ones they should constantly look for, right? And parallelly, they can keep building their other skill set of being a backend developer, database or cloud. But as soon as they are proficient in any one domain, they can start going and applying for the job.
Okay. And so, for example, when you started applying for your job, right? So you landed your first job at Microsoft.
Yeah.
Now, that is very, I think that is interesting for me, and I think that'll be interesting for learners as well. That what are the things that you included in your resume that actually got your resume shortlisted for Microsoft?
Okay.
Right. So it might not be for Microsoft, but for any job that I'm applying, what is the basic research that I should do that my resume gets shortlisted? So let's take an example for a front-end developer job, right? So if those are the basic skills that I'm learning, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React, what should I put in my resume that my resume will actually get shortlisted?
Okay. So to answer your question, what I would tell you is we have certain groups of company. The first group of the companies, product-based companies, which develops product, like Microsoft, Google, Amazon. These are product-based companies. The next group of companies are service-based companies, like Wipro, Accenture, Capgemini, TCS, right? Who are consultancy-based companies where they hire candidates and they make them work for other companies who are their clients, right? And then we have third sector of companies who are startups, right? The kind of hiring, kind of requirement varies from all these three sectors of the company, right? If I talk about product-based companies, you need to have data structures and algorithm skill set. You need to have strong logic building abilities and problem solving skills that comes from DSA.
Just to interrupt you, can you explain us what are product-based companies?
Okay. Product-based companies who creates products, as in Microsoft has Windows as a product. Microsoft has Bing as a product, a search engine, right? So these are product. Product is something that is being used by end users.
So if I have my own product, then I'm a product-based company.
Exactly.
And what is a service-based company?
Service-based companies are the companies who give support to product-based companies. For example, there are a lot of vendors in Microsoft. There are a lot of vendors in all the Tier 1 companies who are not there to develop a product.
Right.
They are there to support the existing product of Microsoft. Let's say Microsoft developed a product, let's call it a product P, and that product P has been developed by people who are working at Microsoft, the full-time employees like me, right? But once it is already developed, Microsoft would not want people to spend time on it. Instead, they will just give it to a company like Accenture, get 2 people, 3 people from there, and then they'll just make them to support that product.
So to summarize, you're saying any company which has its own product like Intellipaat or Microsoft or Google, they are product-based companies.
Exactly.
Companies who help other companies for their software like TCS, Infosys, Wipro. These are service-based
They
companies.
provide services, yes.
Right. Is there a third type of company as well?
I'm talking about startups. I have segregated these three in these three buckets purely from the intent to showcase how the hiring happens and what kind of skill set is looked for when they try to hire candidates.
Got it. Right. So should I have resumes targeting all these 3 different sectors?
Definitely not. So first thing you need to understand is where do you stand? Okay. If you are extremely well in data structures and algorithms, if you are good in a particular language, doesn't matter which language it is, but in data structures and algorithms, if you are very strong, you can try out for Tier 1 companies. You can apply for Microsoft, Google, Amazon. Over there, you don't need to have multiple skill set. You don't need to have multiple languages. Even though you just have data structures and algorithms, a very strong proficiency in that and couple of projects around it, you should be able to get your resume shortlisted, provided you have some referrals as well and all that. Right? The service-based companies, on the other hand, do look for basic DSA and basic aptitude. And over there, your skill set will matter. Have you done something extra apart from just programming? Have you done full stack development? Have you designed websites? Have you explored backend cloud database? Those things will matter in service-based companies because they try to look for candidates who are at least jack of all trades because they don't know what kind of requirement that they might receive from product-based companies.
Right.
So they need people who are at least aware of things so that they can be molded in a way where the requirement comes.
Right.
And the last part, startups who are fairly couple of years old, requirements in startups are very specific. For example, they need a React developer. They need someone who can develop their database. They need someone who can handle the cloud, right? So over there, a very focused skill set is required. Right? So that's a segregation of hiring and segregation of different ways these 3 segments of companies hire.
So if I'm a person who's not good at data structures and algorithms, which I'm sure a lot of our audience would also be, right? So for us, what are the companies? So you said Tier 1 companies we should not apply to for now. Unless we're good at a job, right? And we know DS algo.
Absolutely.
So if I'm applying to product-based companies who are not Tier 1 companies, what should I include in my resume? So my question is that what should we have exactly in our resume? Because a lot of times, I'm sure a lot of people would have also faced this problem. we have listed down that we know React, we have listed down that we know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but our resumes are not getting shortlisted.
Correct. So the very first thing that resume should have is something that can prove the point and showcase your skill set, what you have already mentioned in the resume.
Okay.
And that comes from projects. Whatever you have done in terms of, it could be a college project, it could be a small scale project, or it could be something that solved actually a large problem and it's actually live. Whatever is the case, try to have multiple projects covering multiple areas.
Okay.
Right. For example, you can have a project that can give a book, maybe I saw a resume where a student designed a library management system for its own college. It's being used there. Right. Now it's a very big thing to have that in the resume. Someone who is in college has designed something that's being used in the college itself. Right. And similarly, I had a different resume where it was mentioned that a book bus booking service was designed by a college student, so that someone from the college can book a bus from going from college to city and city to college, like that, right? So projects like these, which are trying to solve problem and they have solved problems, makes a good impact.
Okay.
Because that's where the company should be able to see that this person has actually saw a problem, rectified it, and it's being used by people.
Right.
So projects being the one. Mostly for freshers, and for experienced candidates, their past experience, whatever they have gone through so far, what kind of projects they have worked on, how much understanding they have towards their project is something also equally important.
So again, so if I'm an experienced professional, right? So in my job, I've done nothing which is related to development or which is related to full stack development. So how will I include projects which will actually help me to get a full stack job? So what is the way to go for that?
All right. So your question is someone who is already working in a different role, but trying to move into a full stack developer role. What kind of projects they'll be able to include, because they have not worked in full stack development.
That, right? And also for a college student, I can only include projects which I've done in my college.
Correct.
Right. But those projects are usually not that, they don't have that depth.
Correct.
Which might be required for the full stack job. So what is the option for me? How should I find projects to work on? Right? So how should I go about it?
For experienced person, I would say that even though your job is something different than full stack, try to have pet projects. Okay. Even though you are working in a different role in a different company, if you're aiming for full stack development, you should look for pet projects. You look for something. I mean, there is one way that you find a problem around you, try to solve it with your ability to code and develop something that can solve it. That's one way. But in case you have not been able to find a problem, right? I saw a very interesting resume where the person had developed 3 projects, and the first project was a Amazon clone. He developed a Amazon.
Okay.
I mean, not exactly Amazon, but he developed an e-commerce website that was end-to-end working like Amazon. You can order something, you can do things, right? So he didn't solve any problem. He just used a particular idea which is out there and created a project that is eye-catching. Okay. And that can showcase that this person knows front-end, back-end, database, everything. And he hosted it on a website called AWS as well. So, and similarly, second project was Instagram clone. He designed a UI of Instagram where you can scroll in the same way, you can see photos in the same way, you can scroll through the stories. So that showed the skill set. So in case you have run out of ideas of what kind of projects I should make, just make something which is very common out there, right? That can be eye-catching, right? So that can make a difference. And also very important point, when you mention projects in the resume, and nowadays those days are gone where we are sharing hard copy of resume. It's all soft copy, right? You should always mention the GitHub link of that project, so that someone who actually wants to see the code, what you have done, they can actually click on that link and see the code. That has always been a greater value add in the resumes.
Right. So that's a very interesting point. And this is something, which we have done in our full stack courses as well. So we have a lot of projects, which we ask our audience to do. And very, very important point which Shubham mentioned was that if you are out of ideas, we should just create clones. Create a clone for Netflix, create a clone for Instagram. Absolutely. Right? And if I'm applying for a front-end job, I don't have to create the back-end also, right?
Exactly.
Just create the front-end.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we already have an inspiration there. And I mean, for front-end, we always have the code also available.
True. Right? And just to add to that point, I also saw a scenario where a candidate, instead of sharing the resume, he shared a website link.
Wow.
And that website was his resume.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Right? So if you're scrolling through the website, everything is coming, his work experience, what he did. So that resume itself is a website, and that is showcasing his skill set. right? And that's the most creative way to showcase your skill set. Instead of proving it via text, just make it and prove it, right?
Okay.
So that could also be one of the very differentiating factor if you're trying to apply for companies.
Right. So to summarize, when I'm applying for jobs and if my resume is not getting shortlisted, so the first thing that I have to do is include the technologies that I've learned. Like for example, front end, you mentioned, learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. Once that is done, I should include projects, which are supporting these skill sets that I've mentioned. Now in projects, I can write about the things that I've done in office. If they are not relevant, then I can talk about my pet projects. And these pet projects could be clone of any popular website. Right? And the third thing is to go even a notch higher. I can create my resume as a website. Right? And showcase my experience over there. So that's really cool. So guys, I think you guys have a lot of ideas now as to how to apply for a job. And that is going to help. One more aspect that I wanted to touch base on. So let's say there's also a concept, and I think from the pandemic, this has grown a lot. A lot of people are into freelancing these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So can I be a freelance web developer? And this is especially, relevant for people who are experienced right now. Let's say I'm sitting in a job where I'm, earning around 10 to 12 LPA. And now I'm planning to shift my domain to full stack. Now you mentioned the starting salaries for full stack, for getting into full stack for front end developers would be around 5 to 10 LPA, right? So I might not be comfortable leaving my job right now, right? So how should I get into the freelance world, right? Where I can start earning a side income, build on my projects and not leave my current job.
Okay. So there are multiple ways to get freelancing projects. If I talk about my time, because I was also a web developer, freelance web developer in the second year of my college, I used LinkedIn as a source where I was just displaying every single thing that I was doing around front end. And I was constantly posting the message out of, like, the last line out of every post was, if you want to if you need to make a website, or if you are finding someone who can design a website for you, whatever the requirement is, you can reach out.
So you were just posting this on LinkedIn, or were you sending it to specific people?
I was just posting it on LinkedIn. And most of the time, I was sending connection requests to people to figure out if they need some help. Whenever I used to see a poster around, upcoming college fest, I used to just send a mail to the college administration executive people that, do you need a help in designing your website? These are my projects. So I think reaching out to people, using LinkedIn as a social media platform where you can showcase your skill set and also mention that you are okay to do it and you are capable of doing it. So anyone who wants to get it done can reach out, can be number one way to get freelancing projects.
So were you charging them at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So for someone who's starting out in freelance, because I've seen this on a lot of websites when I'm, let's say if you're going to Upwork or freelance.com. So people mention they are charging $50 an hour.
Right.
$15 an hour also.
Correct.
So what should I mention? As a person who's a beginner, I don't have any projects, right? So what is the amount that I should mention on the website?
Yeah, I think it totally depends upon the project, that what kind of project it is. If it is just a one-page or static website, and it's the first project that you are trying to do, you can charge bare minimum amount like 10-15K in INR. That is something you can charge them for. But if you see something like a e-commerce website is supposed to be developed where there is front end, back end, database, you can actually calculate the number of hours that you might be spending and put the what is something that you're expecting per hour, maybe 2K per hour, and then multiply it by that. So it totally depends upon the project, right? But someone who is starting off, it's always better to focus on the quality and charge less for that quality than the market, because that's the exact same thing I did. The first project I did it for free. Even though the person was trying to pay me, I said, I want to do it for free. And that person kept coming back to me for multiple projects, right? So I think building relationships also play a very important role when you're trying to do a freelancing work, right?
So to summarize, what we have just learned is, if you're planning to start in the freelance world and if you don't have any relevant experience and you've tried your hand at applying for projects and not getting one, first of all, build network. Use your LinkedIn, send requests, send cold messages to anyone and everyone who probably is at a position to give you that particular project.
Very true.
Right? Don't expect money, right? Try doing it for free, at least your first project, so that you can build your portfolio. and then make your way about it, right? Then
Exactly.
start charging. Okay, so I think that gives us a very good view on how we can start project, and this will basically help us to build our resume.
Exactly. And then you can use those projects to apply for a job in a company where, as a full stack developer, you can apply it for.
This is something which is faced by a lot of people. I'm not able to speak in the interview.
Exactly.
Right? I know all the technical things which I have to know about my technology, but when the first question comes up, I'm not able to explain myself. So how important is other soft skills related to, the interview process, how I present myself, what should I talk about in the interview, right? So how important are these things from a perspective of startups, from a perspective of tier 2 companies, and also from the perspective of applying to companies like Google and Microsoft?
True, very true. And it's a very relevant question where I have faced and seen this happening a lot of times, where I have taken multiple interviews, and in most of the interviews I see students are able to solve questions, they're able to write code, but when I'm trying to ask them to explain their code, they're not able to explain it better. Right? So speaking up the thoughts well, talking about your approach, how did you actually go about solving this problem? A lot of people faces problem in that.
Right.
And to be honest, 50% of your chances relies on those aspects as well.
Okay.
Technical skills is important, but it can just take you to a certain level. After that, you need to have a strong communication skills, at least enough to explain yourself better in order to actually crack the job. Right? Now, there are multiple factors over here, right? It's not just communication. It's just it also is how well you're able to speak up your thoughts well, how well you're able to frame your sentences, how well you're able to interact with it, right? So all those things are equally important if I talk about in technical skills as compared to technical skills, right? And there are multiple ways to overcome that. I have always mentored people who are not so good in communication. I have given them tips as well, that students who are facing problem in public speaking, or they have stage fear, or they are facing problem in speaking out well, expressing themselves well, just try to record yourself speaking, right? You need not be talking to someone. You can just decide a topic, speak it in front of your phone, and just record it and just look at it, right? You'll be able to see a lot of hiccups, a lot of problems that you have been facing that you can acknowledge and try to make it better, right? You can also watch a lot of TED Talks, understand their body language, understand how do they speak, how do they frame sentences, right? So overall, the thing is, communication is something I see is very underrated when it comes to engineering roles, development roles, IT roles, but it's not at all like that. You need to get a good communication. And the best part is, you eventually get more than you deserve once you are a good communicator, is what I have seen from my personal experience as well.
Okay.
Right? Where even though you are not very good on technical terms, but you are able to explain things well, you're able to interact with the interviewer well, it will give you a way positive impact. Right?
So I think this is something that we have actually included in our Intellipaat course as well, where we have talked about soft skill training, and we do give soft skill training as well, because we have consulted you as well at many times that what can we do so that people get placed after getting the course done. And soft skills has been the number one thing which people say that a lot of people don't pass in when they're giving job interviews. Okay, so let's say I'm a person who knows English to a certain aspect, but I'm not very camera friendly, because most of the interviews they happen online these days. Right? So one way that you have told us is start practicing.
Exactly.
One thing that I wanted to ask you was, does giving interviews, like how many interviews should I give before I end up in my first job, right? Because people often, they get demotivated after getting rejections, right? And I'm sure when you would have also applied for Microsoft, you would have also applied to a lot of other companies as well. So giving interviews, will it help improve my soft skills? Point number one. Point number two, how many jobs should I apply to before actually calling it quit? This is not for me. Maybe I should think about something else.
Okay. So talking about your first question before, that will giving interviews improve your communication skills? Definitely yes. But at the same time, I would not suggest someone to rely on interviews to get their communication skills better.
Okay.
Right? there are a lot of other ways as well. Interviews will teach you something different. Interviews will teach you how to be comfortable in an environment where you are constantly judged every time you speak.
Okay.
Right? So that's also a scary environment to be in, and you need to be comfortable in that. So interviews will teach you that part. For communication, there are a lot of other ways as well, which I mentioned already. Right? What was your second question?
My second question was, how many interviews should I give before calling it quits? This is not my cup of tea. I should not be doing this.
I don't, at least it's my belief, I don't see quitting should be ever an option.
All right.
You should always see the underlying problem that is preventing you from cracking the job. Right. And you should try to solve that particular problem. And if the problem is really extreme and unsolvable, you can try a different direction altogether by maybe turning the way you're applying, or maybe switching to trying for a different similar role, something of that sort. But I wouldn't call it quitting. I would call it trying to understand underlying problem, trying to note down all the interviews that you have given. What is the one top reason you felt you got rejected? And this going through the list will give you a one underlying problem that's most common, right? And trying to curb that. So that has been my approach, and the same thing I would suggest as well.
So why I asked this question was because so I have some friends who have gone for masters in the US, right? Now over there, when they're applying for jobs, they have sat in more than 150 to 200 interviews, and then they are, seeing some success in getting a job. So is that the same case in India as well? Like before getting the job that I really want, have you seen any of your students, or have you seen any of your colleagues, or your personal experience as well? After how many interviews do you think someone actually lands a job?
Not exactly interviews, I would say, but I would say definitely that, once you apply for 50 to 60 companies, especially if you're trying for off campus and you are a fresher, off campus and fresher, it's the most difficult part in India to apply a job because of the overpopulation that we have, right? A lot of people trying to get job, right? So over there, I have seen a very harsh ratio where you apply to 50 to 60 jobs, 50 to 60 placement opportunities, you send your resume and you get response from only 5 to 6 from them, right? So that ratio is very harsh. And the other way to look at it is be okay with it. Like have this assumption that I need to apply to 100 places to actually sit for 10 interviews.
So that is a ratio you are saying is a successful ratio when your resume is top notch.
Exactly, because there are a lot of the supply is limited and the demand is more, and then you need to fight with people who are already at par with that. So that is the case, right? And you have to be comfortable with that.
So if I'm applying to 100 places and I'm not hearing back from them, there is something wrong in my resume.
Yes, that could be the reason, or it could be the other way around as well. You're not applying to right place. That could be one. You are not applying in the right way, maybe. That could be second, right? There are a lot of ways to apply it. For example, the most common way is you reach out to someone who's already working in that company and ask for a referral, right? That's a very common way. Second common way is you search for the university recruitment members on LinkedIn. You look for HR folks from that particular company, and you just start cold messaging them, right? That's the second way. Third way is there's a LinkedIn jobs feature itself. Over there, you can directly apply through LinkedIn itself. That's the fourth one. Fifth one is every company has their careers page. Careers.microsoft.com, careers.amazon.com. Over there, you can see the listing of all the openings that is there. Directly, you can apply from there as well. So you should not ever rely on a single way to apply it, right? If you're trying to just use the cold messaging part or only referrals part, and you have sent hundreds of referrals and not getting success, you are doing something wrong. Maybe you have to try other approaches as well. You have to try other ways of reaching out to people. You might have to alter resumes a couple of times and see which one is performing better, right? Because if you are trying to look for a job, your dream job, you'll have to go to an extra mile to figure out things.
Right. So the winning ratio is 10%. If I'm applying to 100, 200 jobs, I should be getting 10, 15 responses.
Yeah, for a fresher off campus, yes.
So if that is coming, then my resume is all good.
Yeah.
So even for experienced people,
if you are not from a tier 1 company or tier 2 company, because people who are from tier 1 company, HR folks themselves reach out to them. Okay. Right. So they don't have to go out and then look for people. which is the case here. But if you're from a company which is a tier 3 company, tier 4 company, you have to do a slight more fight. But the fight is fairly easy than the freshers, because now you have something to showcase. You have done some projects in your company. You have certain years of experience. So you have an extra hand, right? But for a fresher off campus, 10% is definitely, yes, that's a ratio.
Okay. Great. And once we get the interview, then we have to have those soft skills parameters.
Definitely, technical parameters, soft skill parameters. So you should be actually ready with all of them, because getting till the interview is a big thing, especially for a fresher off campus. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So talking about your journey in Microsoft, or in job hunting, or from the learning perspective as well, when you got into full stack development, what is it something if you were to do it all over again? Right? So because for a person who is starting off in the full stack domain, maybe this will be very relevant for them.
Yeah.
If you were to do it all over again, how would you go about it? How would you start your journey into the full stack role?
Okay. So to be honest, my answer would be, I would like to not change anything at all, because I actually enjoyed the journey, the both ups and downs. But what I can talk about here is what has been my learnings, and what are some things which I can share which eventually led me to place I am, and what are the things I am not so happy about, and someone can take learning out of it.
Okay.
So the very first thing is, as I mentioned, in the first year of my college, I completely blocked the coding part. I was only focusing on the front end development, right? And somehow I felt after my second year was over that you need to have some understanding of data structures and algorithms as well. At least a basic problem solving skills and logic building abilities, right? So that's the first takeaway I would give you, that try to have something that can give you a essence of one coding language, and you should be able to understand data structures and algorithms, solve at least basic problems. That is first. Second takeaway I would give you is, try to complement that skill with something on which you can develop projects on. Full stack development is the most relevant one. It has all the flavors. So that could be one of the options. But there are other options as well, although I will recommend only full stack development, but other options like data science, cybersecurity, blockchain, there are n number of things. Try to find something on which you can develop projects on, that you can showcase, not just in the interviews, not just in the resume, but also on your LinkedIn profile. That will open up doors for freelancing and other places as well, right? And the third and the most underrated part, which I mentioned, is communication. You will end up getting more than you deserve if you're a good communicator. Right. And the biggest example is me myself, right? There are people in Microsoft who are better coders than me. There are people in Microsoft who can write better products than me. But I am here speaking in front of you, right? It's because I can speak up well. I have worked on myself to make my communications better, right? So that's the third takeaway I like to give to everyone.
Great. So I think we have covered everything which is relevant for someone who wants to get into the full stack role. But I also want to talk about the audience who is not into coding, right? So we talked about audience who's not into coding, want to learn coding because it's just not interesting for them. But what about people who don't want to do coding at all, right? So can they get into a tech role? And especially because somebody who's a full stack developer, I'm sure they have people in their team who are going to help them, in getting the product out.
Absolutely.
Right. And so my question is, somebody who's not coding, can they still be in the tech role?
Absolutely. Yes.
And what are the roles which are surrounding the full stack developer, which basically help them in getting the product out?
Okay. So if I answer this question from the perspective of full stack development, you can imagine full stack development to be an umbrella again. And inside it, there are multiple segments. Front end is one segment, back end is one segment. Then you have something called DevOps. DevOps it's not coding at all. It's about things that is required to make a product available to the world, right? So it's not about front end development. It's not about back end development. It's about taking the whole code, which is the amalgamation of front end and back end, to a position where it can be accessed by people,
right?
And supporting that particular product, making sure it is there out there, testing it, right? So all these things comes under DevOps, which is a technical role and does not involve coding. So people who are not very keen into being a coder, but keen to be under the umbrella of full stack development and in a tech role, DevOps is something they can go for, right? And DevOps has also multiple segments. You can just work on the cloud platforms. You can be someone who's making sure that the cloud platform is well established and the product is there, available, reliability is there, security is there, all the scalability part aspect you can take care of. Second part is you can be a tester. Okay, you can test the product which has been developed by front end and back end developers, right? So you can be a tester as well. And similarly, say for example, you can be there are multiple types of testers as well. A manual tester is someone who is testing the product manually. There's someone called load testing, where you are writing a bunch of logic to simulate load to test the product. So there are multiple areas where you don't have to code, but you can still be a part of a tech team.
Great. So to summarize, I can basically be a cloud engineer. I can be a DevOps engineer. I can be a tester. So all these roles are people who are actually going to help a person who knows full stack. Now, another question that I have is, now since there are front-end engineers, there are back-end engineers. So why do companies actually need full stack engineers, right? So because there are people who can do front-end for you, there are people who can do back-end for you. So why do you need someone who knows everything?
Okay, very relevant question. And 20 years back, if you go back to see how companies were hiring, they were trying to hire people who are specialized in areas. They were trying to hire people who are front-end developer, back-end developer, and then someone who can test the code, someone who can push the code and make sure that the code is up there and running, right? But now the trend has changed. It's all about full stack development. And the most basic reason and the most important reason is something I would like to answer with a question, right? Did you hear about ChatGPT or OpenAI 1 year back? Right? Nobody had heard of it. It was not existent because it was not released, right? But today, every single person is talking about ChatGPT. Every single person is trying to use ChatGPT. In fact, every company is trying to leverage an AI into their product that can increase their sales, right? So everybody wants to have a piece of it. So what was not at all existent 1 year back is the most relevant thing today. Other thing can also happen. For example, the most relevant thing today can become unexistent 3 months down the line or 4 months down the line. So that shows how versatile tech industry is. The requirements keeps on changing. What is something that's going to come next month you're not aware of.
Right.
And to support such changing environment, you need people who are versatile as well, who knows things in and out, who knows multiple aspects, multiple domains of a product. And full stack developers are the one who are the most versatile people out there in the tech industry. Because they are aware about UI, they are aware about backend, they can design logic, database, cloud and everything. And that has led to the increase in the demand of full stack developers. You don't need to hire 10 people who are specialized in their area. You just need to hire 4 people who are full stack developers. So it's a cost effectiveness as well. So versatility, cost effectiveness and overall efficiency of the company.
All right. So any parting words that you have for our learners, right? So everybody is looking out for a job right now. They want to get to their dream goal. So people who are hardworking but are not finding success right now, you know, people who are going to start in this journey, what is your final parting words for them?
So final parting words in terms of how to prepare, if I talk about, the first thing is try to make sure that you have basic understanding of DSA for sure. That can give you logic building abilities, problem solving skills. The second thing is make sure you are finding a role like full stack development or data science or anything. My recommendation would be full stack, and creating projects on top of it that can give you an extra edge in terms of placements, resume building, interviews. And the third part is the communication part that you need to develop, right? This comes in the preparation part. But once you have developed all these 3 aspects, what you need to do is go an extra mile to look for people who are trying to hire. Over there, you have to have multiple ways. Be aggressive when you're trying to apply for companies. Don't just apply for one company and wait for the response to come back. Try to apply 10-15 companies every day. Look for opportunities out there. Look for referrals. Post your achievements, your projects on LinkedIn, right? Post it on GitHub. Showcase your project on GitHub as well, right? So things like that can give you an extra edge to make sure that you can land up in a company that you want to be.
All right. So thanks a lot, Shubham, for your time today. And guys, you can find Shubham in our Intellipaat batches as well. If you want to talk with him more, if you need his guidance, if you need his mentorship, you can join our full stack program. And Shubham is, among our leading instructors who would be teaching you the same. So thank you, Shubham, so much. And we would love to have more conversations with you.
Absolutely.
So looking forward to talking with you again.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.